Hey everyone, and welcome to the passenger seat, here with your host Joseph. Today we're doing another Backseat Driver, where I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different from our usual tabletop comic sort of deal. And that's going to be a mobile game I think we've all come to know and love, and we've been playing very frequently, and that's Among Us. Among Us also fits within the theme of October because it's a pretty creepy game. All the awesome artwork that's been coming out for Among Us is really creepy, and I absolutely love it. So what is Among Us if you haven't got around to it yet? It's an online multiplayer social deduction game where there are two main roles, and that's going to be the crewmate and the imposter. So you have a group of people, some are crewmates, well, most of them, and then there's a certain number of imposters. It could be one, it could be more, and basically the crewmate's goal is to identify who the imposter is, and the imposter's goal is to slay the crewmates without having to reveal his secret identity. It's a very fun game for those of you who haven't played it yet. So Among Us was developed and published by Inner Sloth, and it was released on June 15th, 2018. For those of you who've played Among Us and know a little bit about tabletop games, maybe it's sort of similar to another game you've played called Ultimate Werewolf. So Ultimate Werewolf is also a social deduction game, which is based off of Dmitry Davidov's 1986 game called Mafia. Mafia is better known as Werewolf, and Ultimate Werewolf is just an adaptation of that, or a game based off of that. Werewolf, or Mafia, is also a social deduction game where there's two conflicting groups. You either have your majority who are uninformed, which are the villagers, and you have your informed minority, which are the werewolves. Similar goals. The villagers are trying to figure out who the werewolves are, and the werewolves are trying to slay the villagers so they don't get caught. It's a very fun game. I was fortunate enough to be able to play it with a couple of my friends. Thank you, Corte and Crystal. And yeah, it is definitely worth checking out if you haven't. So if you like Among Us and you haven't played Werewolf, go check out Werewolf. If you've played Werewolf and you haven't played Among Us, play Among Us. And if you haven't tried either, I recommend both. They're both equally as good, equally as fun. And yeah, I'd recommend it to anyone trying to, have a good time with a mobile game. And again, it does have a little bit of a creep factor. So yeah, definitely check it out. And thank you for joining me on this ride here. I'm going to throw it over to Carlos, who has something very special in store. He's going to be talking a little bit about our culture. So for those of you who don't know, Carlos and I were both Puerto Rican, and he's going to be talking about Puerto Rican urban legends. So I hope you're excited to see Carlos with that, and I'll just toss it over to him. Thank you for taking the ride with me. I'll see you next time here on the passenger seat.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy Carlos here. Hope you enjoyed Joseph's last video. Now it's my turn. And I know you guys are used to me talking about comics, but this time I'm going to change it up a little bit. So just to let you guys know, Joseph and I, we're both Puerto Rican. So that being said, in the month of Halloween and all the scary and spooky things that involve in doing these videos, I'm gonna share a little bit of history of our mythical creatures in Puerto Rico. And if you guys like it, just go ahead and comment down below and if you want to hear more. So the first creature I'm going to talk about today is Chupacabra. I know a lot of you probably heard that one before, either from when the ones in Mexico or the ones in the South United States, but I'm talking about the first, the one that originated in Puerto Rico. Now, it was 1995, and I know what a lot of you are thinking. Some of these urban legends and folklore, when you think of them being really old. But this one is generally modern. Also, since the fact that I was born in 1993 and it was only 1995, I don't remember much of it. I was a kid. So the way this origin or folklore started was because in the countryside in Puerto Rico, in a town in Puerto Rico called Banoanas, a lot of livestock from farmers started dying, and not just goats, because as if those of you out there who don't know, in the English translation for Chupacabra is goat sucker. So it's not just goats though. The people on the countryside started complaining about waking up and finding their pigs, their chickens, and goats and other animals, horses, dead with 2 fang marks right here on the side of their neck, bleeding out, almost sucked dry. Reports started coming in of the farmers supposedly seeing a creature in the middle of the night because they stayed up and they wanted to see what was attacking their livestock. So a lot of reports came in of a creature that usually was hunched over, had quills on his skin, was sort of hairless, big beady eyes. They're either black or they were red, depending on the person's description. There was reports that it had wings like a bat. I don't know so much about that one. Also, that it had spikes in the back of his head, sort of all the way down to his spine. Descriptions say that he was about 3 to 5 feet tall, so not really big, but big enough to freak you out. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. If you see this creature, you would freak out, even though there was no reports in Puerto Rico of it attacking a human being. So, why would you be scared? We're going more in depth than that, but because if you see a miniature giant creature just there with big beady eyes, I'm pretty sure you're gonna get scared. So continuing with the story. So they were so worried about their livestock that they had to tell basically their government. So the government decided to post guards on people's farms, and these guards were to protect the livestock that was remaining. But even in 1996, there were reports of over 2,000 animals were still getting slaughtered, and with the fang marks. So everybody was sort of questioning what is going on here. It got to the point where kids were escorted to and from school, and a lot of families abandoned their homes, worried that it might change its mind and attack humans. One never knows. So reports increased so heavily that it reached the newspapers of Puerto Rico, and it got the attention of a lot of government officials. These rumors reached the mayor of Canoanas, Jose Ramon Pimos Soto. Now, he was up for re-election that year, so he figured to himself that to get re-elected and to benefit off whatever myths or stories that are coming out of this little town, he would try to help them. So he created this weird sort of safari to go and find and capture Chupacabra. And one of the things that he did that was reported on the papers, because he was not afraid of doing interviews, so he would just flat out everything. He grabbed about 200 people, including armed cops, and they got on a pickup truck. On the back of this pickup truck was a caged goat, and he would post himself next to the cage on the back of the pickup truck with a giant crucifix in his hands, with the hopes of catching this animal by using the goat as bait, and then sort of, I guess, using the crucifix to petrify it. I'm not quite sure what he wanted to do with the crucifix, because I guess everyone thought it was a demon, so it's just how it is. So after these events happened and it got all across the papers that that's what the mayor was doing of that town, the Puerto Rican government, the governor, and all the other political figures, they wanted to put a stop to this and sort of end the whole lore and myths and stuff like that and the scary stuff, because it was scaring away tourists. They weren't getting the income from the tourist areas, so they hired a bunch of biologists from the United States. The United States biologists came down, researched the farms, and researched the animals that died, and tried to see if they can get a couple theories going of what it could be. So I'll share some of those theories with you of what they thought it could be. Number 1, bats. So they believed that bats had a drought, so they would come from different caves and different mountains to be able to feed because they were running out of food. So they believed that they would suck on the livestock that was around to be able to survive. Number 2, they believed it was a pack of wild dogs. Now, stray dogs were very common in Puerto Rico. It's only recently they're trying to, fix that. But back in the 90s, it was very common. So the theories were that there were a pack of stray dogs with mange, because mange, would sort of take away the fur and make them look kind of mangled up. So that was one of the theories. Number 3, it was monkeys, experimental monkeys from a scientific lab. That one's a bit of a stretch, but the 4th one is even more of a stretch. It's sort of my favorite. So only 40 minutes away from Canoas was Fort Buchanan. Now this was a U.S. military base in Puerto Rico. So one of the biggest theories or stories going around was that a military monster, like an experiment, got loose and was just killing the livestock. So people believe that the Chupacabra was either an experiment or an alien that the military captured and it just escaped. So that's my favorite theory because it's just so ludicrous. But we're talking about a monster here, so everything might sound a little bit ludicrous. So the Chupacabra, as you know, never been found. There was never a real picture taken of him or her creature. Doesn't matter. Can't assume it's gender. So those theories were just that. It just turned out to be theories because they couldn't figure it out anything and they couldn't discover it. But because of this, it became a cultural phenomenon, and now mainly everybody knows of El Chupacabra. And it actually helped tourism later on in Puerto Rico by throwing out t-shirts, posters, and things like that, or little farm tours of try to catch and see the animal at night. It wasn't until the early 2000s where another Chupacabra appeared around Mexico. Now that one was completely different. I'm here just to talk about the Puerto Rican culture and the specific creature that we had in Puerto Rico. So I won't touch upon the Mexican one. But yeah, so that's it for my part. If you guys really like this kind of history thing of Puerto Rico, I would really like to share it with you, especially in this whole month of October and all the creepiness going on. So it's been fun. Please comment, like, subscribe, and hopefully you guys can go ahead and take a ride with us again in the passenger seat.